something about brand names that you could cover?
About, I'm sorry?
Names of equipment.
Oh, names of equipment. Sure. I mean, there are many. Mine is a Zoom H4, and they make a Zoom H2, which doesn't have the external inputs. It just has the stereo mic, so it's just great, what they call field recorder. Olympus makes one. Tascam, Tascam makes one. Sony makes one. And people will argue for hours on the internet about which one is the best. Whichever one you feel the most comfortable working with, and you're not going to press the wrong button by accident because it's too confusing. That's the best one.
And you can find reviews, and then there are like online discussion boards for field recording equipment with people ringing in, like Allison said, you know, I prefer this one because of this. No, and Vermont Folk Life Center has a really great
they do, and also
list of equipment that they keep updated. It's really current.
UK, Doug Boyd's website, Digital Omnium, I think is what it's called, and that's linked on Vermont Folk Life Center. That's a really, really great resource. And actually, he has this sort of system, question and answer system set up where you can say, it's sort of like a drop-down menu. What is it that you're trying to do with your, what are you looking to do? What's your price range? What's your expertise level? And it'll sort of pop out suggestions on good equipment to purchase.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about any?
I'm just curious more like Allison, tell us about what you do. I mean, like, are you down at Wakarusa recording?
Me?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything
I've done a lot
about
of
any
stuff
of
over
this
the years. I'm a musician and an audio engineer, and I worked with a state park called the Cumberland Trail State Park. I've been doing field recording on my own with, you know, little
I knew you were a
cassette tapes.
musician, but I didn't know you did all this.
Yeah, and so I got a job working for this guy Bobby Fulcher. He's a state park manager, but his state park has a cultural imperative. Cultural preservation is a part of the park's mission. So he hires people to go out and collect oral histories, record music. He also puts together performances of local musicians, just anything to keep that culture alive and spread the word, make people know about it and support it. So I worked for him doing field recordings and digitizing old field recordings that have been made and making finding aids, which are databases where people can look all these different recordings up. And after that, I worked in Nashville at the Tennessee State Library and Archives, digitizing another collection.
Where I know you.
Oh, really? Did we work together out there?
I worked at DSCN8084, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was a little basement troll down there in the basement digitizing
I was
the
director of
Tennessee
public
State Park's
services.
Folk Life
I
project.
kept thinking, I know you, I
It's
know
been a
you.
while.
I thought it was ETSU or something.
Yeah, it's been like 5 years now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I digitized a portion of that collection, which is music and oral history and photographs and things like that.
No, the highest point in stress evaluation is that initial response that you make to a microphone. And I think y'all have nailed a lot of that down. Your setting, the demeanor that the interview is being conducted on. I like the picture on the front of the book because it shows the interviewer and the interviewee addressing each other while the equipment is actually off to the side. It's not a material thing for it. If you remember some of the emergency communications that you might hear off of an airline, in stress, those pilots are great. I mean, they talk high profile and high density air traffic controllers every day. But that initial response that they do is the highest level during this entire emergency situation that they're gonna have to face. And so, you know, you try to make a setting where the interviewee is able to get his story told, you know, concise, becomes a concise record.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
we'll stay out of the way.
what y'all have done is very very good. Even a lot of your law enforcement people could use that. The very first time I was ever recorded when I was in knee deep in a homicide investigation, and I'd been working for the department for 5 years, and it was on a record.
Yeah.
I mean, things has changed a lot.
Yeah, it'll improve your listening skills for sure, recording all those things.
So there's lots of really good, easy to implement things in this book. It's from the Library of Congress, the National Folklore Archive there. So these folks know what they're doing. And there's some more back there. There's some Spanish resources if that would be useful to you. There's a version of this that's in Spanish if you know somebody that can use that. I want to just say the two big take-home things for me, and then have all of us do that. And then Jen's going to share some resource sites. Mine are always pack more batteries, more batteries, more batteries, more batteries, and always listen more than you talk.
That was what I was gonna say, so you go. I have to think of something else.
I mean, we could just vote.
One would be, when you were mentioning that, would be the importance of, you know, we can document things in informal or formal settings. Ideally, even the most formal interview will be informal in nature. But I would like to say that if you can, whenever you can feel comfortable with it, if you have those release forms intact, please do actually, whether you're recording your grandmother, you know, for only family purposes or family reunion or whatever it might be, I would encourage you to actually deposit it into some kind of an archive, state archive, university archive, wherever there's interest to deposit in, because you never know when something could be valuable research information. Like you had to go to South Carolina to get information about an Arkansan, you know. So you never know when something could be really useful years later. And also it supports its preservation, of course, too. So do deposit your work in some sort of a repository if you can. That would be my take home. But yeah, there are a couple resources here.
Wait,
that
let's hear Allison's big two.
Well, having had these guys cover most of the important stuff, I'm mostly giving variations on a theme, but just prepare. Don't let your equipment or some kind of physical limitation limit your gathering of this stuff. Make sure that everything that could go wrong with you is taken care of and out of the way, and so then you can deal with whatever eventuality might come up once you actually get on the scene. And take copious notes, because you're not going to remember at what point in this 3-hour interview she told a story about her horse. So keep some notes as you're going along, for your own sake, if not for ours.
And do a little bit of playback when you're just starting to double check that you're recording correctly and that your audio is at the right level. So have someone do an introduction, ask them some tester questions, and then take a minute and actually play that back in your headphones or whatever your system is, and make sure it's okay before you proceed with the real stuff. The Folklore and Folklife resources available on the website is a PDF as well, so if you ever want to just send this link to someone, I just Googled it and found it. Another sort of fun kind of thing that probably lots of folks have heard about is StoryCorps. That's take the oral history model and do something a little bit different with it. But I think it's an interesting idea of everyday stories being actually quite important and useful to lots of folks. And so how this works is it's a nonprofit that they set up these sort of mobile, some of them are permanent, recording studios, say a brother and a sister or a husband and wife, mother, daughter, go in and one prepares some questions and interviews the other, and they receive a copy, and the other copy is then archived at the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. And then a lot of these recordings have then been aired on NPR.
Yeah, Story Professor's been here.
Okay, cool.
Willow and I were interviewed. We
Oh,
did a story
awesome.
corps.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
It's really fun. Did any of you go? Did any of you do the story corps when it was here?
Martha and Sophia.
Did you do the story
I
corps?
think Martha and Sophia did it, didn't
What
it?
was it?
Story
The
Corps.
story corps, the
Oh, yeah, we
Airstream.
did 2 interviews, yeah.
Yeah. That's super spiky.
And there are some resources on their website on recording your own stories without the aid of Story Corps. The Seventh Foodways Alliance is kind of leading the way, I would say, in a lot of sort of, I guess, digital storytelling or video oral histories. They do really impressive work. Rachel, you did a Arkansas barbecue trail.
It's hard work, I tell you. I had to eat barbecue from one state line down to Texas and back.
And this stuff is used in so many different settings. I've used it in classes I've taught. It's also just really interesting, compelling stuff all the time.
They did.
And you can kind of organize, you could sort of search for oral histories related to a food style or a region, and just sort of have a lot of fun with that. There's a project that is called a Spoken Dish. Anything else? Oh, this is the set of fieldwork guide videos, one of which we watched at Traditional Arts Indiana's website. Anything else?
You want to show them the Vermont Folklife Center?
Oh, yeah. So this is a great read right here, particularly if you're looking to buy audio equipment.
Yeah, if you're thinking about buying some audio equipment, mark this down. This place, and at all price levels, from minimal, and it does really great comparisons and can lead you to exactly the device that will be most useful for you.
And then this is the website I mentioned, Doug Boyd, University of Kentucky Digital Omnium. And there's some great videos also, but I personally, that's come in handy for me on, so here's the recorder that Allison has, and there.
It's actually a step up from mine.
Okay.
I'm getting jealous of your one just
What about this one, H2?
That's a step down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somewhere on there,
Step up,
Allison.
step down.
And this is a good little introduction and how to add some tricks. So.
Can you tell me what your first resource was that you put up there? I missed that.
The Vermont Folklife Center one? Is that?
No, I think it was American Folklife Center.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
Thank you.
And that is who published your little booklet, so there should be contact information.
Yeah, there's a website right there on the back of the book.
Once you all go out and record and
And you can
document
go,
and share.
if you're interested in Arkansas stuff, which probably you are, you can go on the American Folklife Center website and you can search by state. And so it not only lists the holdings in that state, Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, whatever, but a lot of those items are available to listen to online. And you can request copies of things. There's a charge for that, but not for listening online. And some of Parlor's materials are in there, as well as they have her husband Vance Randolph's recordings as well.
So you just got American Folklife.
Did you get one of the?
Yeah, so I was saying, you're talking about this when you
Yeah.
If you just Google American Folklife Center, it'll pop up.
Just Google what?
American Folklife Center, it should be on
Folklife,
that thing,
okay.
American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress, yeah. But it's LOC.gov/folklife.
Okay, any more questions? If you get home and you sit up in the middle of the night at like 3 o'clock and you're like, I wish I'd have asked a question, I didn't think of it till now. I think all three of us will be here all weekend, so if you see us, I know I will be. So,
Now, from your interviews, can any of you three of you be willing to share a little bit about one of your experiences? I guess, a person you interviewed or.
I'll tell you about something that I wish had happened on tape.
yeah, that happens quite, it's like the question you forgot to ask.
Yeah, so we went out to interview and record Clyde Davenport, this old fiddler, in East/Middle Tennessee. And we went out there and his wife immediately took a dislike to me and wanted to subtly let me know that she thought that I was some kind of sexual deviant and go to hell. And but Clyde is just a ray of light, and that was fun. But I was a little bit stressed out when we left, and so my friend says, "Well, let's go by and see Evelyn Sharp." Evelyn was the daughter of John Sharp, who's a great fiddler, great master fiddler out there, and she played guitar, backed him up on a lot of recordings. But she's in her 90s. And so we went out there, and we I don't even think we brought any instruments out. We played music with her. We just hung out and talked. And Evelyn she's gotten this older because she is 2 weeks back. This woman is mean, and she is bitter, and she is not she's not the least bit shy about expressing her opinions. So I was in love. These are my people here. And we got to talking about politics, and Democrat and Republican didn't always mean the same thing that they do now. And there were a lot of conservative white people who now would probably be, politics be more Republican, but they voted Democrat for generations because that was the party that, and she was an Al Gore senior Democrat. So Al Gore's daddy, had run the whole state, basically, at least that portion of it. And she got to talking about George Bush, and she said to me, and she said, "I'd like to tie him behind my truck and drag him down the road in peace." I wish I had got that. That's a lesson always rules.
Yeah. I told this story. I was telling the story to Willie. I think all three of you guys were in here. We were upstairs in the listening lounge, which I highly recommend you go up there and play around on. It's pretty neat. There's 32 tracks from Parlor's collection that you can listen to. There's additional images that aren't in this room that you can see from her collection. And there is the film The Search that'll show on the big screen here twice on Saturday. But if you're not going to be able to make those times, you're going to one of the other shows or some of the other events, that film is also on a loop in that listening lounge. And it's great. It follows her around the woods. Well, you can read the panel. They're looking for this old ballad, and she's on a ballad hunt. She's going from person to person. And one of the people that is in that film and is singing is this gentleman here with the yoke of thorns. Or as I say, the crown of thorns gone terribly, terribly right. I love it. But his name is Fred High. And when I was a new folklore student and I had found Parlor, been led to Parlor, and I was just totally eat up with the whole thing. I decided, I went to the Shiloh Museum, is what it was, the one of their brown bag lunches. And they were, I believe, showing The Surge. There was this gorgeous row of little old ladies with big white buns sitting in the front, and I was like, who is that? I want to know all of those ladies. They are too cute. And one of them had stood up at some point and introduced herself as Fred High's granddaughter, and mentioned that she was an evangelical minister, and that there was a church in High, Arkansas, which Fred always said, Fred High, Arkansas, population 1. and he was the postmaster of High, Arkansas for 4 years. So to know that there was this church and that there was this family, she mentioned that her nephew and her swapped off preaching in this church. And so I went up and I said, what time is service, you know? And she told me, I mean, I introduced myself and stuff, but so me and my friend Samantha got in the car and we went to church the next Sunday out there in High, and it was a very interesting experience. I did not take a recorder on purpose because sometimes, you know, you need to feel out the situation and let people know who you are before, especially in a setting like a church, and establish a good relationship with somebody before you go in with cameras and everything. So I had not taken any cameras. I wish I had had them. It probably wouldn't have turned out as interesting if I had, but so we sat through this church service, which was very interesting, and then they said, the family cemetery's out here. Would you like a tour of the cemetery? Well, I love cemeteries on any day, any cemetery where there are no, I go picnic and I love to read headstones and look at them and stuff. And they had a bunch of the picture headstones are my favorite.
Oh, yes.
And they had a bunch of those, including Mary Briscoe, who is, no, that's not Mary Briscoe. I thought that was a picture of her at the spin wheel. That's Fred High sitting at the spinning wheel. But she's his sister, and she was what they called a witchy woman. She was she practiced herbal medicine. She had lots of remedies, and she was a really neat lady. But she had a picture headstone, and I saw it and everything. And anyway, I was walking around, and I said, y'all don't have a restroom I could borrow, do you? And they pointed me to this outhouse that was in the middle of the cemetery, and it was very fancy. It had faux green marble Formica, two-seater with like the vinyl padded seats and everything. But the most striking thing about it was there was this brass plaque on the door that said, "In loving memory of Tina," on it. And so I had to ask, you know, so I was like, somebody needs to tell me who Tina was, you know, I wanted to know who Tina was that they dedicated it to. And it was, I forget the lady's name, that was his granddaughter, but it was a daughter-in-law in the family who had died mysteriously in the middle of the night, and I guess they didn't really care much for her because they had, in her memory, they had dedicated this outhouse to her and stuff. But the whole day was just, you know, the whole day was just really special and pretty much totally undocumented, but forever burned in my brain, you know. I journaled that, but that was fun.
Like I like to say, always roll tape, but she's right that there's a certain period where, in order to establish trust and really get down to the good stuff on the level, you gotta just go in.
And some
as a
people,
friend, as a person.
and some people just don't like it. I went and did an interview with one of my heroes, Wendell Berry in Kentucky. He's a farmer and poet in Kentucky. And he invited me to come to the farm and stuff. And I, at the time, had this plan. I had 12 people I wanted to interview. He was number 1 on the list and stuff. And I had planned on recording the interviews. And he saw me getting that stuff out, and it made him really uncomfortable. He wasn't going to tell me no, but I could tell it made him really uncomfortable. And luckily, I couldn't get my stuff to work. Like, maybe it was because I was so nervous to be in his presence or whatever, but I couldn't get everything to line up and work. And so I just got my notebook out and we sat at his kitchen table and we talked for 4 hours. And he said at the end of it, he said, I hope you know, I hope you realize that this is so much better than it would have been if that recorder was. And I knew he was right, you know. And some of those things are just kind of intuition and experience of doing it over and over. You learn how to kind of read people and what they're comfortable with and what they're not. And it just always turns out better if you don't.
And a part of that is returning, you know? And
Yeah.
really, like the difference of just doing a one-off interview and the difference in not just building a little bit of rapport, but in building a lasting relationship. And I think that particularly when it comes to footwear scholarships, you can see there are these almost canonical relationships between informants and folklorists and other kinds of documentary researchers, where there's been a return year after year or time after time, and the layers just peel back, and the conversation that you have is so much more fruitful. When documentary equipment is pulled out, it's not as much of an issue, and there's a trust embedded in that, and that is meaningful and it's useful.
I have a question, y'all, and this came to mind because of your describing the outhouse dedicated to this woman. And it's my kind of personal observation that as people get older, they drop some of that public, formal kind of attitude and persona, and they kind of get more real and direct and more interesting, I think. But the thing I want to ask other people about is, I think I spent a part of my life before television, and I just found that people like that dedication to the outhouse. People just were more interesting and more, I don't want to say dramatic, but I mean their relationship, interactions with each other just were more colorful. I think we gained a lot with television, but I just think we've lost some of that. In my memories from my childhood and things that happened in my family and among my extended family, I mean, they were just so funny and fun and lively, and I don't see that quality